Okay. Thank everybody for coming. We may actually have a full house electronically today for the board. I'm not certain of that, but I think we do. It's terrific to share the morning with you. Looking forward to it. My weather report is that it's cloudy and overcast and very, very humid and just beautiful. It's impossible to call this view anything other than that. Before I forget, I've never thanked Paul Koopman, and I want to do that on the record, for the extraordinary plaque that now resides at the entrance door to this room, to the boardroom. Paul, it is beyond pretty. Thank you very much for putting all of it together, for arranging the design. The board members who haven't seen it need to get here to see it. And those of you who have, I hope you will appreciate it because Paul worked awfully hard to get that done. Diane Folletti is on the call. Don't get to see Diane much anymore, but she is working awfully hard supporting our work. You all are getting notes from Diane, attendance notes, polling notes, phone numbers, Zoom call-in numbers. Diane is doing all or most of that. Diane, thank you for that. I'll ask Sarah to do the roll call, and then we'll start this up.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We are recording and holding this meeting by video conference pursuant to legislation that was enacted in September. For board members, we have with us our board chair, Al Carney, John Johnson, Beryl Snyder, Joan Sullivan, Wellington Chen, Jerry Romsky, Phyllis Morris, and Ken Evans. I believe we are still waiting for John Gardner, Janice McKinney, and Adrian.
Nope, Janice is here.
Oh, hi, Janice. Okay.
Hi, good morning.
I see you now. Good morning. And for outside bond counsel, we have with us Virginia Wong, Doug Seaton, and Chris Reitzel. And from DASNY staff, we have Diane Folletti, Alex Sardine, Caroline Griffin, Craig Schreivogel, David Ostrander, Deb Fasser, Dina Amodio, Jeff Gordon, Kathy Ebert, Karen Ellinger, Kim Ellis, Maria Carrasco, Matt Bergen, Michael Clay, Nadine Fontaine, Paul Koopman, and Portia Lee, and Steve Curro, Steve Kozier. And that, I believe, is it. Ricardo is in the room with you, along with Ruben McDaniel. And those were the individuals I can see in the room from my vantage point. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Beryl, thank you too for coming in this morning. I know you could have done this on the phone, but it's good to have members in the room. Thank you for doing that.
Well, I also think it's important for people to actually show up, be it one way or another. So
I don't disagree.
I'm here.
Thank you for being here.
And Adrian has joined us as well, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Adrian. It's good to have you with us. Once we get John Gardner, we may have a full house. Has John joined? Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. I want to formally welcome Kenneth Evans. Ken Evans. He is now the official designee for the Department of Health. And Ken, it's great to have you with us. Look forward to working with you. We tend to rely a lot on the health department's designee on this board, and I'm guessing that you'll have to bear up under some of that weight as it comes your way. Thank you.
Yep, no, not a problem. Glad to be here.
All right, thanks very much. Let's get to the business. The agenda item first on deck is the review and approval of the minutes of the meeting of 8 September. Are there any questions about those minutes? Anybody got any proposed revisions? Are they okay with as they sit? Hearing no comment, I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
I don't know who that was. Is that Wellington?
Yes.
Wellington, thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Joan Sullivan.
Thanks, Joan. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes and it passes unanimously. Jerry, yes, you're on the call already, I believe.
Yes.
We had the Finance Committee meeting yesterday afternoon. Mr. Chairman, do you want to tell us about it?
Sure. Thank you. We first adopted the meeting minutes from the September meeting of the Finance Committee, and then we advanced to discuss one offering, the Suny dorm bond, which is really a refunding bond. And after some discussion, we voted unanimously to recommend that be approved at this morning's full board meeting. And unless anyone has any questions or concerns, that's going to conclude my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Any questions for Jerry? Hearing none, the agenda item behind tab 3 is the Fordham University proposed financing, and David Ostrander is going to present it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep my comments fairly brief. This is a financing that was brought to the board back in September for resolution to proceed. Since then, there really has been no change to the purpose or the security that was described to the board at that time. So just a couple of updates since the board adopted the resolution to proceed. We've received the PACV approval, the TEPRA hearing has been held, and the seeker review has been completed. So this is a financing that's on track to be in the market the week of October 25th. So unless there's any questions, I will turn it over to Chris and Douglas to discuss the documents.
Since I usurped the president's plan to actually introduce this proposed financing, I will continue to usurp it.
Please do.
by pointing out that we have Chris Reitzel from Nixon Peabody and Doug Seaton of Seaton and Associates presenting now.
Morning, everyone. I'm going to start with the series resolutions before you and the plan of finance, and then turn it over to Douglas for discussion of the security and sources of payment. So before you for consideration is the adoption of 4 series resolutions authorizing individually and in the aggregate up to $205 million of DASNY's Fordham University revenue bond. The authorized bonds are proposed to be issued under DASNY's Fordham University revenue bond resolution adopted in 2008. Proceeds of the authorized bond are expected to be used to refund all or portion of the university's 2012, 2014, and 2016 bonds issued by DASNY, and to finance various construction and renovation projects throughout the university. The authorized bonds are expected to be issued as a combination of tax-exempt and taxable fixed-rate bonds. It is currently expected that authorized bonds will be sold by negotiated sale to Morgan Stanley as lead underwriter. In addition, DASNY, the university, and Morgan Stanley may also enter into one or more forward delivery bond purchase agreements to refund all or a portion of the prior bonds. The series resolutions, however, do not limit the discretion of DASNY's officers to determine to issue the authorized bonds in other configurations than are currently contemplated. Each series resolution before you also delegates to various offices of DASNY the power to make the determinations described in our letter and to do all things necessary or convenient in connection with the sale and issuance of the authorized bonds.
Morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Douglas Seaton here. The authorized bonds will be special obligations of DASNY, payable solely out of the revenues, which consist of the payments made by the university under the applicable loan agreement. Payment of authorized bonds is secured by the pledge and assignment made by the general resolution of the revenues and the monies and investments held in the funds and accounts established by the general resolution and the applicable series resolutions. DASNY and the university will execute a loan agreement in connection with each issuance of the authorized bonds, which will require the university to make timely payment of debt service on the authorized bonds. The university's obligations to make payments under the loan agreement will be a general obligation and is expected to be unsecured. In addition, DASNY will execute an assignment of the loan agreement, assigning all its rights under the applicable loan agreement to the trustee, other than certain unassigned rights. The university will also enter into an agreement to provide continuing disclosure to facilitate the underwriter's securities law obligation. Thank you. And if there are any questions, Chris and I will be happy to respond.
Thank you, Doug. Are there any questions for David, Chris, or Douglas? Hearing none. May I have a motion, please, to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Wellington. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Beryl. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
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 Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing no comment, the transactions, the resolution carries unanimously. The transaction is approved. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind tab 4 is the Suny Dormitory Facilities Program single approval transaction, a summary of which will be provided by Stephen Kozer of DASNY. And then we have with us Virginia Wong of Nixon and Peabody and Douglas Seaton of D. Seaton and Associates presenting. Steve?
Thank you. Good morning, all. The board is being asked to adopt documents on behalf of the State University of New York Dormitory Facilities Revenue Bonds Program to refund all or a portion of various DASNY bonds, including bonds issued under the old State University Dormitory Facilities Lease Revenue Bond Program and the new SUNY Dorm Program in an aggregate amount not to exceed $700 million. The Residence Hall Program is a self-supporting program of SUNY, generating revenues from over 450 residences or residence halls on 25 campuses to support its operations, maintenance, and debt service. You will recall that the DASNY board adopted 2 separate and distinct resolutions in 2020 on behalf of the SUNY Dorms program. At the March 4th, 2020 DASNY board meeting, the board adopted documents on behalf of the SUNY Dorm program for a refunding with a not to exceed amount of $440 million. Bonds have not been issued under those March 2020 resolutions. The other financing for the SUNY Dorms program that the board adopted documents for in 2020 was a restructuring transaction presented at a special board meeting held on June 3rd, 2020. In July of 2020, DASNY issued bonds under those resolutions adopted in June to provide cash flow relief to SUNY by refunding all the SUNY Dorms debt service due in SUNY fiscal years 2021 and 2022. This transaction being proposed is simply a refunding for savings, which will supersede and replace the March 2020 refunding approvals. The refunding approved in March 2020 was placed on hold at that time as SUNY assessed and responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. In March of 2020, campuses transitioned from in-person classroom instruction to distance learning. Each SUNY campus has been open fully since the fall 2020 semester, with the curriculum delivered either in person, virtually, or a combination of both. Prior to COVID-19, dorm occupancy averaged 95% from fall 2016 through fall 2019. In the fall of 2020, the occupancy rate dropped to approximately 63% due to the impact of COVID-19. Feedback SUNY has received from its campuses thus far indicates a significant bounce back in utilization for fall 2021. However, still below the pre-COVID-19 utilization. For fiscal year 2020, the SUNY dormitory facilities generated total revenues of approximately $572 million, and total expenditures were approximately $350 million, which resulted in debt service coverage ratio of approximately 1.34 to 1. With respect to the proposed refunding plan, the final maturity of the refunding bonds will not exceed the final maturity of the bonds being refunded, and the bonds are currently expected to be issued on a taxable basis. However, if a tax-exempt advance refunding with a forward delivery were economically advantageous, or if tax law changes to permit tax-exempt advance refundings with standard delivery, the financing may include tax-exempt issuance. The refunding may therefore result in net present value savings of approximately $45.6 million, which is approximately 7.8% of the bonds being refunded. Also, current market dynamics may provide the ability to further enhance potential savings for Suny using a tender and exchange offer. If utilized, the tender and exchange offers would qualify as current refundings and would occur concurrently with the proposed refunding. The level of incremental savings realized by the tender and exchange would depend on market dynamics and the level of participation by existing bondholders. Regarding security for the issuance, pursuant to the Enabling Act, Suny executed an assignment to DASNY of all rights in dormitory facilities revenues. Suny is required to immediately deliver such revenues to the Commissioner of Taxation and Finance for deposit into the Dormitory Facilities Revenue Fund. Monies are first used to pay debt service. The amounts remaining in the fund after payment of debt service is available to Suny to fund operations and maintenance of dormitory facilities. Currently, bonds under the old Suny dorm program have first lien on the revenues. This is a refunding for savings, which is also expected to defease all bonds outstanding under the old Suny dorm program and will place bonds issued under the new Suny dorm program in the first lien position. And I'll now turn it over to Virginia and Douglas for the co-bond counsel presentation.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Douglas and I will take the same approach that Douglas and Chris took. So before you for consideration is the adoption of 3 series resolutions authorizing the issuance of bonds under DASNY's State University Dormitory Facilities Revenue Bond Resolution adopted on May 15th, 2013. Each series resolution authorizes the issuance of up to $700 million of authorized bonds as fixed or variable rate, tax exempt or taxable bonds, but also restricts the aggregate principal amount of authorized bonds that can be issued under all series resolutions to $700 million. The proceeds of the authorized bonds are expected to be used to refund certain outstanding bonds previously issued by DASNY for the Suny Dormitory Facilities Program. In order to enhance potential savings, the holders of certain bonds previously issued may be offered the option to tender such bonds or for repurchase or to exchange such bonds for certain authorized bonds. The series resolution also delegates to various officers of DASNY the power to make the determinations described in our letter and to do all things necessary or convenient in connection with the sale and issuance of the bonds. This includes, among other things, determinations as to the procurement of credit support and the funding of a debt service reserve fund, although no debt service reserve fund is expected to be established in connection with the issuance of the authorized bonds. The general resolution constitutes the agreement between DASNY and the holders of the bonds issued under it and contains the basic terms of that agreement. The bonds issued under the general resolution will all be on a parity with each other. However, such bonds are subordinate to the outstanding bonds issued under the prior Suny bond resolution. But as Steve highlighted with this refunding, we anticipate that the prior Suny bond resolution will be fully defeased. The bonds issued under the general resolution are special obligations of DASNY payable solely out of and secured by the Dormitory Facilities Revenue Fund and all accounts within that fund, including the reserves for operations and maintenance and repair and renovation, and the money and investments on deposit in the fund and the accounts within it from time to time. The general resolution permits the issuance of additional bonds to be issued pursuant to it only if the dormitory facilities revenues collected during each prior year of the preceding 2 Suny fiscal years satisfy the test in our letter, except in the case of refunding bonds.
In connection with the initial issuance of bonds under the general resolution, DASNY entered into 2 agreements. The Financing and Development Agreement by and between Suny and DASNY sets out the respective obligations of DASNY and Suny in the construction, rehabilitation, renovation, and improvement of dormitory facilities. It imposes on Suny obligations, among other things, to operate, maintain, and repair the dormitory facilities, establish fees and charges that during each Suny fiscal year will be at least sufficient to pay the debt service on all the outstanding bonds under the prior resolution and the general resolution, define the reserve for operations and maintenance, and the reserve for repair and rehabilitation. The fees and expenses of DASNY and all expenses for the operation and maintenance of the dormitory facilities. The Dormitory Facilities Revenue Fund Administration Agreement by and among DASNY and Suny and the State Commission of Taxation and Finance establishes procedural requirements that govern deposits to and transfers and payments from the Dormitory Facilities Revenue Fund. The authorized bonds are authorized to be sold to one or more private or public negotiated sale through one or more private or public negotiated sales to a syndicate of underwriters pursuant to bond purchase agreements containing customary terms and conditions. In the event of a public negotiated sale, it is expected that the representative of the syndicate of underwriters in connection with the issuance of the authorized bonds will be B of A Securities, Inc. In the event of a tender and exchange, it is expected that the dealer manager in connection with such tender and exchange will be B of A Securities, Inc., and that an invitation to tender or exchange bonds will be issued and distributed, and a dealer manager agreement containing customary terms and conditions will be executed. To enable the underwriters to purchase and offer the authorized bonds consistent with the provisions of Rule 15C212, the series resolutions authorize DASNY to enter into an agreement to provide continuing disclosure. If there are any questions, Virginia and I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for, Steve, Virginia, or Douglas? Hearing no questions, may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution, thereby approving the transaction?
So moved.
Thank you very
Second.
much, Carol, for the motion. And the second was Gardner? John, thank you very much for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. The resolution is approved unanimously. Virginia, it's good to see you, and Douglas, it's actually good to see you twice.
Good to see you too.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you both. And Steve, thank you very much. Mr. President, are you gonna?
Thank you. I'm now turning my president's report, but my initial is the resolution for Tracy Raleigh. And I want to turn that back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. It's a sad pleasure for me, at least, to do what I'm about to do, which is to ask the board to approve the resolution thanking Tracy Raleigh for her service. I learned a lot from Tracy Raleigh on sitting on this board. And while she has recommended her successor, and I have no doubt that Ken Evans is going to be a tremendous addition to this board. I confess that Tracy Raleigh helped me to learn to listen more carefully, and I benefited from that enormously. And I'm sure there are any number of other comments. I'm going to read portions of the resolution. I tend to want to do that in most instances, but I particularly want to do it today. Whereas Tracy F. Raleigh served as a designee representing the Commission of the New York State Department of Health on DASNY's board since April 5, 2015. And whereas during Ms. Raleigh's tenure on the DASNY board, DASNY provided leadership to assist its healthcare and higher education clients with their financing and construction needs. DASNY undertook capital construction, finance, and grant programs for the New York State Department of Health, the City University of New York, the State University of New York Residence Halls, New York City Court Facilities, the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery, and other public and private clients. Whereas Ms. Riley used her depth of experience in and knowledge of finance and government to assist the board, shared her extensive understanding and expertise regarding the New York State Department of Health and the healthcare finance field to provide valuable insight and guidance to the board in its deliberations and decision-making. Whereas the probing, thoughtful, insightful questions and comments of Ms. Raleigh regarding the financial condition of DASNY's healthcare clients and their ability to provide quality essential services, heightened awareness of critical issues, and expanded DASNY's ability to serve its clients as well as healthcare needs of New Yorkers. And whereas in conjunction with her responsibilities at DOH and her role on the DASNY board, Ms. Raleigh has given instrumental advice and sound guidance regarding healthcare delivery in New York State, assistance to safety net hospitals, the establishment of the One Brooklyn Health System, and the implementation of the Vital Brooklyn Initiative, an ongoing community development program for underserved neighborhoods in central Brooklyn. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the members of the board of the DASNY of the Dormitory Authority hereby acknowledge with appreciation the service of Tracy Raleigh to DASNY. This resolution will take effect immediately. I'd like to think that this is a unanimous vote. I don't think anybody's going to oppose it, but I am required to actually ask for the vote. May I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution?
So moved.
So moved. Was second.
Thank you, Wellington, and thank you, Gerard. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
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 I'm going to assume that there's no opposition and that there are no abstentions. Thank you all very much. The resolution passes unanimously. Mr. President.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have two items today on my president's report. One is in your board package, you will have the schedule for our meetings upcoming. One note, the board mailings in that schedule has been set for Friday, the Friday before the board meeting, if you will. The staff has requested, and Mr. Chairman and I have talked about it, we're going to mail those on the Tuesday before giving us that weekend to not only for our own staff, but also, quite frankly, with our clients, they have so many different approvals that they need, having a little extra time is helpful. So we'll send around an amended schedule of meetings with the correct mailing date. But the highlight of my president's report is not me at all. It really is Michael Clay. You know, Michael heads up our MWBE program and is co-head of our procurement program. And quite frankly, Michael does not get nearly the credit he deserves because Michael's such a modest guy. But he's done a tremendous job over the years in making DASNY one of the best state agencies / authorities in achieving minority and women-owned participation goals. And for this year, we hit 36.4%, which is one of the leaders in the state. And Michael deserves a lot of credit, not all of credit, of course, but a lot of credit for that. But one of the things that Michael has always recognized and is well known is that one of the impediments to smaller minority, women-owned, and service-available bidder firms competing for our business is lack of capital. And so he has been working diligently over the years to try to solve that and has partnered with the K-Mite group, and David K-Mite's with us today, to talk about an exciting program. So with no further ado, Michael, do you want to tell us about this great new program?
Sure, Mr. President. Thank you. Good morning, board members and staff. As Ruben mentioned, we are trying to hopefully come up with a solution for small businesses in the construction space that suffer from a couple different things: lack of capital, surety bonding, and also back office. So I partnered with David K-Mite, a certified minority-owned business, a licensed insurance broker in 48 states, who has worked with DASNY over the years to address surety bonding and other areas. And what was developed was the DASNY Capital Management Plan. And what that plan simply does is it provides surety bonding, capital access, project-specific capital access back office on DASNY projects. We were also able to attract the participation of LISC, Local Initiative Services Corporation, which is a national non-for-profit in about 48 states and about 68 rural counties across the country. And this entity provided working capital for this solution to the tune of $10 million. And with a wink and a nod, if you will, of possibly upping that amount to 20 million. So what does that really mean for DASNY? What this means is minority and women-owned businesses and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses will be able to traverse from being subcontractors to prime contractors based on their experience, previous experience on various projects. And they will have the opportunity, after being pre-qualified by Mr. Kamite and his team, they will have the opportunity to bid as prime contractors on DASNY projects statewide. Ladies and gentlemen, this is unprecedented currently right now in the state of New York. DASNY is the only entity that has this solution. In fact, DASNY is the only entity in the country that has this solution. So if a potential minority women-owned business would like to bid on a DASNY project, they would be pre-qualified by Mr. Kamite and his team. They would provide an estimate. They would then get a bid bond, and they would submit a bid just like everybody else to DASNY. DASNY would review that bid. Should that firm be the apparent low bidder, then and awarded the contract, the firm would get bonding, the firm would get capital access, project-specific capital access, and they would get back office assistance from Mr. Kamite and his team in order to work on that DASNY project. DASNY would do nothing differently than what we do today when we evaluate construction bids in the construction arena. Also, there's another component whereby we have attracted 3 suppliers, one for general construction materials, one for plumbing materials, and one for electrical supplies. These 3 firms, based on the tenements of this program, have agreed to participate and to provide competitive terms to any MWBE firms who are interested in participating in this program and would like to get competitive terms and competitive pricing for those 3 lines of supplies. Again, there's funds control involved in this initiative to ensure that the businesses are focusing on completing work on time and within budget for DASNY, which will be a benefit for DASNY's clients. Obviously, the competitive terms for supplies and equipment will enable these firms to submit a better price for material and equipment on a particular bid than what they might be able to get in the marketplace because of this initiative. We are going to be rolling this out across the MWBE and STBOB space. There are a number of webinars that we're going to be doing over the next 3 weeks or so to make sure that the MWBEs, STBOBs, technical assistance providers, associations, all of which are aware that this is available. And again, this is statewide, and it is also the only, for lack of a better word, the only game in town for minority women-owned businesses and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses in the state of New York. So I just wanted to make sure, thank you for those kind words, Mr. President, that I spoke to the board about this a few months ago. So I just wanted to make sure, and Mr. President wanted to make sure that you were aware that this is now live. There is no obligation by DASNY to do anything. Okay, let me repeat that. There's no obligation for DASNY to do anything. We conduct our business just like we do any other time. Is this the opportunity with this program does present minority and women-owned businesses and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses the opportunity to be prime contractors on DASNY projects where they meet the qualification. So, David, I don't know if I left anything out. Is there anything that you would like to add?
No, can you hear me, Mike?
Yes.
Now, first of all, thank you for allowing me to participate, and thank you, Ruben and Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate the opportunity to participate here. Mike, you covered it well. I would just also say that, as Michael indicated, DASNY continues to be a leader in the MWBE space. We've been working on this for 2.5 years, and we obviously got the support that Mike indicated. It is a game changer. The surety industry does also see it that way. Most importantly, it'll be a game changer for the MWBEs and SDVOBs. DASNY continues to be the leader in change and how things can be done relative to bonding and capacity. As Michael indicated, there's nothing that DASNY is obligated to do. That said, there is a lot of coordination, and the commitment to support the program is what we are looking for. And that is the difference that DASNY has provided, that leadership, that commitment to make sure that it happens, that there's opportunities, and we'll take care and do the rest. So I cannot thank you enough. We're meeting with Travelers tomorrow, one of your biggest supporters, one of our biggest supporters, to start going to the particulars and get their support as we move forward. So again, Mr. Chair, Ruben, Michael, thank you. And thank you to all the senior executives at DASNY for believing this and what we can do and make a difference.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, David. Mr. Chairman.
I'd like that. Thank you. A little bit about Michael Clay, first of all. Michael is not an unheralded senior DASNY employee, but he is certainly under-heralded. Can't say enough about the work that Michael has done and continues to do. I've gotten to know him well in my time at DASNY, and I have benefited enormously from Michael's insight regarding particularly MWBE firms. Michael, thank you very much for this. It's as you say, it's unprecedented, and I'm proud to be a part of the organization that is about to launch it. Thank you very much. David Kamite. I met David Kamite when he was first hired at DASNY to support MWBE firm owners and financial people in the acquisition of surety bonds, teaching minority businesses how to go about achieving the goal of getting a bond. I've had the pleasure of sitting in classes that Michael has conducted. He like Michael Clay, is an under-heralded human capital asset, and in Kamite's case, David's case, a resource, a terrific resource to DASNY. I want to thank you both. This is an extraordinary accomplishment. I look forward to the launch, and I look forward to news about what I'm sure will be the success of the launch. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always great to have these types of programs. I want to highlight that for the board. Yeah, it's also nice when a program speaks for itself, so we don't have to hype that up right after all of that. I also want to acknowledge that Michael Clay is on the injured reserve list that came into play today, so I appreciate Michael feeling a little under the weather being with us today. So thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, after the audit report, the various members of the construction finance did their reports. So
after
the audit.
After the audit. Okay, that's fine.
So that concludes my presence.
Thank you, sir. Don't let me forget to go back.
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Gardner, are you prepared to give us the audit report? John, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
There you go.
All right.
The audit committee met yesterday. we took care of a number of items that we do annually, including a review of the audit committee charter and the internal audit charter. There were no recommendations this year, so we have nothing to bring before the board. We then heard the annual KPMG report and plan for the upcoming year's audit. Marie Zimmerman was particularly animated in her report, which we all appreciated. It was not the usual same old report from KPMG. It was interesting. Which is not to say that their prior reports were not interesting. They're all interesting. And then we heard an internal report from Kathy Ebert. That was what we did. That concludes my report to the board.
Are there questions for John? Hearing none, let me commend you, John, for what I believe is an excellent job, the excellent job you're doing on a subject matter that can be a little uninteresting on occasion. You have us focused. Marie Zimmerman was terrific yesterday, as was Kathy Ebert. Thank you very much for the time and effort that you're expending to make that work for this board.
Thank you, Al.
Mr. President, I think we get back to the reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Behind tab 7 is our financial report, and Kim Ellis, our CFO, will give that report. Kim?
Thank you, Ruben. Good morning, Mr. Chair, board members. As highlighted in the standing financial report, we received $0.9 million in financing fees through August. The percentage of direct hours charged to public client programs is slightly up at 94.6% against a budget of 92.5%. And our operating expenses are primarily on target, slightly below budget by approximately $300,000. As the audit committee chair mentioned, KPMG did present their comprehensive audit plan to the audit committee yesterday. This will be the third year of their contract, subject to continuing determination that they are responsible. The DASNY procurement division has completed its review and has determined that KPMG continues to be a responsible vendor, and we look forward to their audit engagement for this fiscal year. Lastly, just an update on our investment management system. At the March 31st meeting, members approved the contract with Clearwater Analytics for the replacements of DASNY's investment management system. The implementation is progressing with expectation to begin parallel processing in November with a cutover in December. The new system is expected to result in a number of process improvements, such as daily feeds from the banks of transaction activity with no posting required by DASNY staff, a streamlined reconciliation process, and compliance reporting. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Kim? Hearing none, we'll now turn to Portia Lee for the public finance report. Portia.
Thank you, Ruben. Just a brief market update for the members. Total issue volume totaled roughly $362 billion year to date. That's compared to $376.8 billion in supply at the same time last year. That's down a little less than 4%. Total supply for this week is expected to be about 8.3 billion. Tax-exempt bond deals were flat yesterday with both the 10-year and 30-year AAA MMD yield remaining at 1.18% and 1.69% respectively. U.S. government bond yields were lower in the 10-year and 30-year space as the 10-year Treasury decreased by 2 basis points to a 159, and 30-year Treasury decreased 6 basis points to yield at 2.1%. Municipal bond funds reported inflows for the week ending October 6th after reporting inflows for the week previously. Since the September 8th board meeting, 1-year MMD has increased by 5 basis points, 10-year has increased by 24 basis points, and the 30-year has increased by 16 basis points. In that same time period, 10-year Treasury yield has increased by 21 basis points, and the 30-year Treasury yield has increased by 11 basis points. So rates are rising, although, again, overall, rates are still relatively low, but, we have seen more volatility in the market. A few other updates for the members. On the ratings front, I wanted to let you know of two recent rating actions. Catholic Health System of Western New York was downgraded to Ba2 from Baa2, and the outlook remains negative. The Moody's report pointed to the pandemic's effect on volume at CHS, as well as significant labor costs. They also talked about operating losses and modest liquidity. On the positive side, they noted that CHS does have a very essential market position. We will monitor this situation and keep you posted. The other rating action I wanted to make you aware of was Truro College, which is rated BBB-. They received an outlook change to positive from stable from Fitch. And that outlook change basically reflected the sustained demand at Truro, as well as their operating resilience. I also wanted to make the board aware that we recently released our RFP for financial advisors and swap advisors. As such, we're in a quiet period now, and staff and the board can't talk to any of these firms about that RFP. If any questions about the RFP should arise, we need to refer those inquiries on to our procurement folks. Lastly, included in the standard materials are the bond sale summaries, which include performance metrics. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I want to say that the financial advisor RFP is our first professional service RFP. We're using an electronic platform.
Really?
So our respondents will enter data electronically. It will be sorted out. We will review electronically and make our scoring and evaluation. Our IT team did a great job of developing the platform. It is our test case.
Okay.
If it goes well, we'll start looking at that platform for more of our professional services RFP. So
Are other financial services firms using an electronic? I'm sorry, Portia, can you hear me? Are other firms using this electronic methodology?
Well, we are one of the early issuers to do this.
Okay.
And we always like to lead. We're just trying to make things, one, easier for our respondents.
Okay.
More environmentally friendly with no paper and such. But most importantly to us,
yeah,
it allows the evaluators to have the information in a good place as opposed to sorting through PDF or documents.
Clear
They
format.
can really, go across.
Well, good luck.
Questions. So hopefully that works well, but our ask team did a great job
Good luck.
on that. Thank you, Portia. Our next report is behind tab 9. This is a Steve Curl's construction report. But before Steve begins, I just want to say that our construction team has been involved in two very highly sensitive political projects, Moynihan Station and Javits, where we're the permitting arm on both of those. And the staff members who are doing those have done a tremendous job of balancing the pressure of the politics with the requirements of responsibility for their craft. They're working odd and tremendous hours without complaint. And I just want to just say that publicly to Steve, your team's doing a great job and really appreciate that. With that, Steve, your report.
Thank you, Ruben. Appreciate that. The code compliance guys have really stepped up and, as Ruben alludes to, have worked some very strange hours around the clock, meeting the needs of the Javits and Moynihan projects. So congrats to them. Quickly, I'll run through a couple of updates. I'll start with Suny. At this point, all the summer projects have achieved at a minimum a temporary approval for occupancy. The last being the Boughton Hall bathroom project, which received a TAO on September 22nd for the residence hall's 3rd floor and core stack 2 bathrooms. The balance of the Boughton Hall bathroom project is forecasted to complete the 2nd week of November. There are 3 SUNY capital projects under consideration to resume following the COVID suspension. The 3 are Smith Hall at SUNY Cortland, which is a $15 million project, which will begin in December of this year. A Wasting Hall at SUNY New Paltz, which is a $42 million gut renovation project, which is anticipated to begin in May of 22. and the Colonial Quad project at Suny Albany, which is a $43 million project, anticipated to begin sometime between May and September of '22. We expect to receive word from these colleges in the next month or so regarding a formal restart of the projects. In addition, there's 13 summer '22 SUNY projects that are on the books currently, with a total project value of approximately $11 million. On the CUNY side, the active CUNY portfolio of projects continues across many of the senior and community colleges. Since the last board meeting, I visited Lehman College with the $95 million School of Nursing project underway, and Bronx Community College, where there is a rehabilitation of the Gould Memorial Library copper roof. Other active campuses include Hunter College, where the $45 million North Building Auditorium project recently kicked off. Queens College, where we're finishing up the Louis Armstrong Museum project. New York City Tech, where there's a number of new projects coming on board totaling $25 million. And the College of Staten Island, where the project activity remains at a very high level. DASNY continues to seek solutions to CUNY's requests for services related to CUNY's CUNY Conserve effort, which is a university-wide effort to reduce energy consumption across the campus's 29 million square feet and over 300 buildings. Our next CUNY coordination meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October 21st. OMH project activity continues across the OMH portfolio statewide. Since the last board meeting, I visited Kingsborough Psychiatric Center, Brooklyn Children's Psychiatric Center, and will be visiting the Capital District Psych Center tomorrow. Viewing projects including roof replacements, systems, and fire life safety upgrades. From a large project viewpoint, the designer of record reworked options for the $406 million Mid-Hudson Forensic Psychiatric Center new build, and has developed a pre-schematic design acceptable from both a budget and schedule standpoint. OMH has provided their approval to the designer to advance the concept to schematic design. In Central New York, the $140 million Central New York major upgrade project continues in the pre-construction phase, and the $40 million Western New York Children's Renovation Project is nearing completion of construction documents, and advertisement for bid will commence once project funding is in place. Lastly, on Wednesday, October 6th, the ribbon cutting was held for the South Beach Psychiatric Center new build in Staten Island. Ruben attended along with a number of contributing project staff. And our next OMH monthly project status meeting is scheduled for later today. OPWDD project activity remains high across the state. Since the last board meeting, I visited Sunmount DBSO, where there's over 15 new active projects underway, many of which will move into construction in the spring of '22. I also stopped at a small window replacement project in Brooklyn related to the OPWDD Community Minor Maintenance Program. This is one of 10 projects currently underway in Brooklyn. A large site restoration and roof replacement project at the Broome DBSO is now underway, with this construction program continuing into 2023 at a minimum. DASNY continues to await the 2021-22 OPWDD CMM project list for the current year, and our next monthly status meeting with OPWDD is scheduled for Wednesday, October 20th. Just a couple of quick updates on other programs. The GOZER program, we're now less than 12 months away from anticipated completion, with all projects requiring completion and closeout by September of '22. Per the program requirements. There are currently 23 active projects remaining. OASIS and HHAP programs continue to advance with several new modified service projects underway statewide. On the Javits Center, work continues on the existing South Building's fire alarm upgrade, with the merge work for the South and expansion areas to follow. At Moynihan, work continues on the Phase 3 Facebook fit out, as well as permitting of retail stores in the train hall itself. NYCHA, the $100 million program is winding down. There's only 4 quality of life projects remaining. At the same time, DASNY is managing the $450 million New York State grant disbursement for work associated with the development's elevator upgrades and MEP system improvements to their heating plants. DASNY's construction division will play a modified service role related to the reimbursement for qualified project costs. And lastly, on the administrative side, our PM web implementation continues under phase 1 with procurement, change management, and payroll configurations well underway. 12 projects have been added into the system for processing, all of which are in the design phase. We're looking to complete the outstanding configurations in phase 1 by year's end and to continue adding selected projects into the system through that time period. On the staffing front, staffing continues to be challenging given multiple variables, including retirements, anticipated retirements, workload, program fee caps, and workforce availability. The construction division is currently recruiting for 10 positions for department areas, including code compliance, construction project management, and procurement. And lastly, DASNY's Owners Project Requirements Initiative will be rolling out by year end, which will be a more formal meeting session with our customer agencies related to new projects and their project and sustainability goals and expectations associated with the same. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions?
Yes, Steve, it's Al. Did we, a number of years ago, do the construction of the Bronx Community College Library? Were we
Yes.
responsible for that? So what you're doing now at Bronx Community College is pretty much an affirmation that they are good clients of ours and have a great appreciation for our work.
Not only that, but we actually have a number of staff housed right on their campus that service that campus and a couple of other campuses in the Bronx. So we're pretty much embedded there and do a lot of work for them. The Gould Memorial Library is a historic structure. The copper roof replacement is an incredible project, but there's many other projects up there that our staff are working on.
Steve, thank you. Thanks very much for your work. Mr. Chris.
Thank you, Steve. And then behind tab 10, we have Nadine Fontaine, General Counsel report. Well, before she gives her report, I just want to say that we're probably in the 100th day of Nadine's tenure. But she's done fantastic. She's family, fit right in and done a great job. So Nadine, thank you and look forward to working with you in the future. Nadine?
Thank you so much. Sorry, I've been sitting here for a while and all of a sudden they decided to have news out, a truck outside of my door. Anyway, as I begin, so behind tab 10, I've included my report regarding our current discrimination and sexual harassment procedures and policies. I just wanted to give the board a brief update of what DASNY's current policies and procedures are with respect to discrimination and harassment complaints. I felt that looking at these policies was timely in light of Governor Hochul's most recent statement that she felt that we needed to revisit and look at the way we are training our employees and state employees and authority employees. And she suggested that we should conduct live training for sexual harassment, discrimination, complaints so that employees knew exactly where they should report, how to report, because I think she thought that there was not sufficient training conducted. But we have not received additional direction from the governor's office on what is required, what additional requirements they want the state agencies and authorities to do in connection with training and other policies and procedures. But we just we're revisiting and looking at what our policies currently are. So currently, DASNY has 7 policies and procedures related to discrimination and harassment claims that are readily accessible to all employees on DASNY's intranet. We have an anti-sexual harassment policy and procedure, a non-discrimination, non-harassment, non-retaliation policy and procedure, domestic violence and workplace policy and procedure, reasonable accommodations or religious observances, reasonable accommodation for persons with disability or pregnancy-related conditions, and most recently, we have the whistleblower protection policy, which was approved by the board this March. In addition to those policies and procedures, state agency and authority employees also have access to the Governor's Office of Employee Relations, also known as GOER. They have a manual that's accessible on their website. It's called the Employee Handbook of Policies and Procedures, and also includes several requirements and the state's general requirements for discrimination and harassment claims. With respect to training, DASNY employees are required to undergo training annually. We use the training modules that were created by GOER. In addition, DASNY's Human Resources Department tracks employee compliance and provides reminders to employees when they're due for training. With respect to reporting complaints, employees have the options of reporting the claims, either verbal or written, to the Diversity Inclusion Director, to their managers, managing directors, to their supervisors, and in the event that they do not receive or feel that they're not receiving a sufficient response from any of those individuals, they have the option of also reporting to our Vice President, Paul Koopman. They can also report to HR. A written complaint has to be filed within 3 days after receipt of the complaint to ensure that all facts are accurately noted and confirmed by the complainant. If the complainant doesn't feel that they received an adequate response, again, they can also contact DASNY's Vice President, Paul Koopman. If an employee does not want to report the complaint to the diversity director, the manager, or the supervisor, they still have the option of reporting a complaint through our new whistleblower hotline, which was also released along with our whistleblower policy in March. This allows them to file a complaint anonymously. The whistleblower hotline is maintained by a third-party hotline provider, Ethics Points, and it allows individuals to file complaints of all inappropriate behavior. So it's not just limited to discrimination and harassment complaints, and they can do so confidentially. They can do so anonymously, though we do discourage individuals from filing an anonymous complaint because it just makes it difficult to investigate a complaint. If you want to get additional facts and if the complaint is filed anonymously, it's difficult to follow up, but they do still have that option. So the hotline is regularly checked and monitored by the Diversity Inclusion Director as well as the Office of Professional Integrity, because the claims can also involve claims of fraud or abuse. So that's why the Professional Integrity Office also reviews it. After reviewing and receiving a complaint, DASNY will conduct a fair and thorough review, interviewing the complaints, witnesses, doing whatever discovery is required, including reviewing emails and documents and communications so that we can make sure that the complainant and the person that the victim and complainant is afforded due process, sufficient due process. Our goal is to complete the investigation within 30 days of receipt of the complaint. And if it's determined that DASNY policies have been violated, DASNY can take corrective action against the person, which includes counseling, suspension, or termination. So that concludes my short summary of the complaint. There's more detail in my full report that's attached at the tab. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, John.
Is there any mechanism whereby the complaint goes outside of the internal management of DASNY?
Yes, we do coordinate with GOER. When we do receive a complaint, it's possible that a complainant can also file a complaint with GOER directly. And when we receive a complaint, we'd have coordinated with GOER to ensure that we're coordinated what the state is doing in handling complaints.
I'm not familiar with that acronym.
The Governor's Office of Employee Relations.
Okay. Is it also not the case that an employee could file a complaint with the Attorney General or the Inspector General?
Correct, they can.
So
they can also file it with the Division of Human Rights. If it's an EEOC complaint, they can file with the federal EEOC or the local EEOC if it's in New York City. So and if there's a criminal aspect to the complaint, they can also file with the local police department.
I guess my comment is this, and it's just a comment, but if we want to create an outlet for an employee to file a complaint with other than senior management of DASNY, we are driving, by not having that outlet, and I don't think we really have it. I don't think the office of the governor's office is the same thing. It's too close. We are driving that employee into the hands of the AG or the Inspector General.
John, it's Al.
Yeah.
May I suggest, it is an important inquiry, and I believe that it needs to be addressed. May I suggest that you contact Nadine, arrange some time with her, just to get her sense of the validity of the suggestion that you're making. You may be extremely correct, or you may not be. Let's find out, and let's you and I talk about it.
I will do that, Al. It may be my fault, but I was not aware that this particular item was going to come before the board. Nadine and I will talk.
And then let you and I talk.
Okay.
Thanks. Mr. President.
That concludes the reports of the president and our executives.
Thank you, sir. There is a matter, and I should have announced this at the beginning of the meeting. There is a matter that needs to be discussed in closed session, executive session. It's a brief matter, but we need to close the meeting and have the discussion. So may I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
I was going to read it all, but thank you very much, Beryl. I'll ask Sarah to make sure that the record reflects that the entire required statement is in the record. May I have a second?
Second.
Who was the second? The second was Joan?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Joan. Thank you, Beryl. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Are there any objections or abstentions? Hearing none, we are in closed session.
Sarah, you'll take care of it. There we go.
Thank you, Sarah. The record will reflect that we have just left a closed session during which no decisions were made other than to return to the open session, the general session. Is there any other business to come before this board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Wellington. Is there a second?
Second, Janice McKinney.
Janice, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. I'm going to assume that there are no objections and no abstentions. Thank you all very much for joining us this morning. It was a great meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, board members. We appreciate your attendance and great to see everyone.
Thank you, sir. Everybody,
Have a good
back
day.
to your desks safely.